LiberalViewer presents.
So welcome to the November 6th edition and possibly penultimate edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I say penultimate edition because I've been saying, for example, if you check the overview over on my Patreon page here, that I've been asking people to help me keep making these videos through the 2016 presidential election, and that's coming up this week. So I'll do another show next Sunday for sure, and then based on the feedback and the support I get from my viewers, I'll decide whether to keep doing it after that. If you want to keep me doing these types of Sunday clip roundups, give me a thumbs up at least down there. You can also support me directly through YouTube fan funding with clicking on the little eye in the corner here. Then if you post a comment on the discussion section of my channel page, it will show you as a sponsor, so you can tell me what you would like me to do based on your sponsorship. Or you can become one of my patrons following the link down in the video description to my Patreon page. All those ways I'll be getting feedback in the next couple weeks as to whether I should keep doing these shows, but this is a really exciting show. It's coming down to the wire, as a couple of the pundits were saying, and then there's breaking news about the FBI. The FBI is one of the big topics I'll be covering, also sort of the final push before the election. I'll also have a whole bunch of clips on the polls that show what's happening just before these last 2 days. And then at the end, I'll have a clip on Bill Maher's socialism discussion with Barack Obama, just a small excerpt from his really interesting discussion with Barack Obama, finally getting him on his show after donating $1 million to Obama's campaign back in 2012. But I want to start, actually, before I get to all those topics, with what may be the last appearance of Alec Baldwin and Kate McKinnon as Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. They weren't really doing any paired up interviews this last week, but there was a fake CNN interview as the cold open on Saturday Night Live, and showed some of the final issues in the campaign that I will discuss after we watch that together over here.
This is how he talks. He pretends to be pro-gay, but then his running mate believes in conversion therapy. He says he's not racist, but this week the KKK endorsed him for president.
No, I don't know the KKK. I mean, what even is a K?
Hey, I'm gonna go for a run. Do you want to come?
No, thanks. I'm good, sweetie.
All right, the KKK. Can we talk about how he kissed the KKK?
Yeah, I wish we could, but we're almost out of time. So let's get back to your emails.
What is happening? Is the whole world insane? Donald Trump has single-handedly ruined so much of what we as Americans hold dear. Kindness, decency, Tic Tacs, Skittles, taco bowls, father-daughter dances, buses, bright red hats, the word great, the color orange, men. But look, if you want to elect him president on Tuesday, okay, go ahead. But then in 4 years, once you all realize you've been tricked, you're gonna come running back to me, begging me to run again, and guess what, idiots? I'll do it.
I think we're going to be seeing Kate McKinnon for quite a while as Hillary Clinton. I don't know if Alec Baldwin's going to be back because, as you'll see in the upcoming clips, especially with the breaking news about what FBI Director James Comey put out in a letter today, it looks like Hillary Clinton definitely has the edge on winning the election. But there was a lot of weird stuff going on in the FBI this week, and so that's sort of the second topic I want to cover with several clips, including the breaking news clip. But first I want to show this allegation that Bill Maher made in his monologue, which isn't that far from the truth. You'll see at the beginning here, it starts off pretty serious, saying that this is kind of a right-wing coup coming from the FBI based on this article in The Guardian that said that the FBI is a Trump land. And he doesn't really go into that very deeply in the monologue, but I thought I'd show his jokes on that that we could watch together over here.
I know this is a comedy show, and I'm going to try to keep it on that level, but it's not fucking funny. There is a slow-moving right-wing coup going on. Media, do your fucking job. Report on it. The FBI has become politicized. They're calling it Trumplandia. There's a faction in it that is politicized and trying to sabotage Hillary's campaign because they're convinced that she is the devil. Now, is it really surprising that guys in a building named after J. Edgar Hoover have issues with women? Perhaps not. But we have reached peak insanity here. The Russians are creating fake documents to discredit the Hillary campaign, and the Trump campaign tweets them out as if they are real. Republicans are trying to elect a sexually assaulting psychopath who is, if not a Russian agent, unwittingly working as one. And people in America are saying, well, it's better than Hillary. No, it's fucking not. We have to get a grip on reality. Remember reality? Trump said yesterday, I'm saying this word for word, he said, I'm honored to have the greatest temperament that anybody has. And then 3 fact checkers died.
So yeah, that was Bill Maher starting to go into his jokes, but you know, he started there saying there's this slow-moving right-wing coup coming out of the FBI, which is, I don't know, that's a little bit of hyperbole, but there were some weird things that happened this week where over on Fox News, they reported that they were moving towards an indictment against Hillary Clinton on Wednesday. And then they started walking it back on Thursday. And I'm actually going to show you what Brett Baer, who kind of broke this story that wasn't even really a story on Wednesday, how he walked it back on Friday. But then after all of that, where there was like these rogue FBI agents feeding information to Fox News that then Donald Trump was using to do damage to Hillary Clinton in the campaign, then just as I was getting ready to broadcast the show, there was this breaking news that James Comey put out a letter to Congress. It was tweeted by Jason Chaffetz, the Republican from Utah, who is kind of a Hillary hater. I was just watching him on Fox News, did not get a clip of that, but this is how they broke it on Fox News, and you'll see Bill Maher, the American newsroom anchor, he's like doing everything he can to try to say, but the story's still kind of alive, the investigation's still alive, and the reporter Ed Henry is trying to seem kind of fair and balanced while still letting him spin it a little bit that way, as I will discuss after we watch that breaking news from Fox News today over here.
Breaking news, Fox News alert now to Washington, D.C. The FBI reaching out to Congress in an apparent update on that letter from the 28th of October talking about the Clinton emails. Now, the head of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Jason Chaffetz, tweeting this a moment ago on screen. FBI Director just informed us, based on our review, we have not changed our conclusions that we expressed in July with respect to Secretary Clinton. All right, some details to go through here. Let's bring in Ed Henry from Washington. Take it a step at a time. Specifically, he's referring to what, Ed? Start there.
Well, first of all, referring back to July was when Hillary Clinton was essentially in the clear when the FBI director said there were problems with her server and walked right up into the line of saying that the law may have been broken and that there was evidence suggesting that, but said that he didn't think any prosecutor would actually bring such charges, and basically suggested anyway back in July that he was walking away from all of that. That's why it was such a shock on October 28th when he wrote that other letter to leaders in Congress saying, well, hold on a second, we're kind of restarting things here because we've got this laptop from Anthony Weiner. He didn't mention the laptop, but he said that new evidence had been presented. That was a big deal. What was that, about 11 days before the election? This may be a bigger deal just 2 days before the election. I have the letter here from the FBI Director James Comey. He said, I want to let you know, we sent that letter, quote, since my letter, the FBI investigative team has been working around the clock to process and review a large volume of emails from a device, again, the laptop, obtained in connection with an unrelated criminal investigation. During that process, we reviewed all the communications that were to or from Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State. Based on our review, James Comey says, we have not changed our conclusions that we expressed in July with respect to Secretary Clinton. I am very grateful to the professionals at the FBI doing an extraordinary amount of work here in a short amount of time. So look, again, a little bit cryptic because it says, we fall back on what we said in July. Doesn't directly say she's in the clear. But look, if the first letter on October 28th was correctly interpreted, cryptic then as well, that this thing may be back on in terms of classified information on that server, FBI restarting the engines. It's certainly fair to suggest now, 2 days before the election, this letter is a signal from FBI Director James Comey, an unmistakable signal, Bill, that maybe those engines are slowing down.
Watching the Trump plane pull up to the airport hangar in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Technically speaking, the investigation was never closed. That's
Correct.
what Comey said over the summer before Congress.
Correct. And he said to Congress over the summer, when he was under a lot of heat from Republicans for not pressing for, a grand jury to suggest that there should be criminal charges or anything like that, that, look, if I see anything else, we'll go back. The thing's not officially closed. That's what happened, we believe, in late October. But I think, again, to follow the facts and not to spin on either side, if we're going to follow this with what happened on October 28th, which was potentially very damaging to Hillary Clinton. Again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to stick to the facts. But I underline the word potentially. This could potentially be a big sigh of relief for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. And, it seems that...
So you saw how Bill Maher there was trying to say, but the investigation, it's not really closed. It was never over, and it's not over now. And then at the end, Ed Henry, that was kind of ridiculous what he was saying, that we were reporting this before, that when they were reopening this, that this could potentially be really bad for Hillary Clinton. And now that there's nothing there, that means it could potentially be good for her. No, it means what you were reporting before could be potentially bad, wasn't true, there was nothing there, and now it's a non-story. That's whatever. And you would think that Fox News would be a little more circumspect about this whole thing, given the way they were way ahead of any real facts on the story. Earlier in the week, I was telling you about how Bret Baier was talking to Brit Hume on his program one night and said that they were moving towards an indictment after the election, and there was no facts beyond that on that. And then also Fox News had been reporting that FBI sources were saying that there were 5 different foreign nations that hacked into Hillary Clinton's private server, and they had to walk that back as well. Here's the big apology from Bret Baier talking this time to John Scott on the Fox News program Happening Now on Friday morning. And this is something you almost never see on Fox News. I've been doing Fox News bias all these years. They almost never do one of these full-throated apologies. So, they must have really screwed up, as Bret Baier kind of explains here.
Was quoting from one source about his certainty that the server had been hacked by 5 foreign intelligence agencies. And while others believe that is probable because of the confirmed hacking of email accounts Secretary Clinton communicated with, as of today, there are still no digital fingerprints of a breach, no matter what the working assumption is within the Bureau. All the time, but especially in a heated election on a topic this explosive, every word matters, no matter how well sourced. Which brings me to this. I explained a couple of times yesterday the phrasing of one of my answers to Brit Hume on Wednesday night, saying it was inartful. The way I answered the last question about whether the investigations would continue after the election. And I answered that, yes, our sources said it would. They would continue to likely an indictment. Well, that just wasn't inartful. It was a mistake. And for that, I'm sorry. I should have said they will continue to build their case. Indictment obviously is a very loaded word, John, especially in this atmosphere. And no one knows if there would or would not be an indictment, no matter how strong investigators feel their evidence is. It's obviously a prosecutor who has to agree to take the case and make that case to a grand jury. We stand by the sourcing on the ongoing active Clinton Foundation investigation and are working to get sources with knowledge of the details on the record and on camera, hopefully today. John?
But clearly there are some within the FBI who believe that the email system was hacked by foreign operators. It's just not something that the FBI is putting out there as being a certainty.
Exactly. They're sticking with what Comey said back in July. But to be clear, when you're quoting someone, you have to be clear that there is this cut and dry determination that you have to have the digital cyber fingerprints to make a complete determination. We should have made that distinction.
Brett Baer.
And you saw the anchor there, John Scott. He's like, after that whole big long mea culpa apology, we were wrong to report that 5 foreign nations had hacked into her server. We were wrong to report that they were moving towards an indictment after the election. All of that was wrong. And then the anchor, John Scott, his emphasis at the end is, but they could still have hacked into the server, right? They just don't have the digital fingerprint. That's like the main point to emphasize at the end of all that. I don't know. That is just, I guess, kind of amazing that Fox News even went that far to apologize. But in some ways, the damage was already done. I mean, in a lot of ways, the damage was done. Even I think Kellyanne Conway on one of the shows at the end of the week was saying, basically, the damage has already been done. And over on Fox News Sunday, Chris Wallace had vice presidential candidate Mike Pence on, and he asked him, why is Trump saying that there's going to be an indictment, even though there's no hard evidence of that? Chris Wallace never mentioned the way that Fox News was involved in spreading the story, and you'll see Chris Wallace doesn't even follow up when Mike Pence just says, he just sort of dodges the question and says there's general corruption. And anyway, I'll talk about that after we watch that clip together here.
Trump has been arguing that if Clinton wins, that she faces a criminal investigation and an indictment. And here he is on the campaign trail. Take a look.
If she were to win, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis. What a mess. I mean, we went through it with him with the impeachment and the lies. Aren't we tired of this stuff?
But, Governor, Trump has no hard evidence that she's going to face an indictment. I mean, that's overstatement.
Well, Hillary Clinton and her foundation are under a current investigation by the FBI. We just found out this morning that she had her maid print off classified information, according to revelations in the New York Post. I mean, Chris, the American people know no one is above the law. We commend the FBI for following the facts and reopening the investigation. But I think this is part of the way the American people need to count the costs in this election. Do we want more of the fast and loose ethics of the Clintons over the last 30 years, or do we want a clean break? Do we want to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C., have fundamental ethics reform, and rebuild our military, revive our economy, repeal Obamacare, and have appointments to the Supreme Court that will uphold our Constitution? This is all part of the equation that I think explains why you see such tremendous momentum in this campaign and why our campaign is literally expanding the map. We're on offense, and the Clinton campaign is literally on defense, trying to shore up blue states around the country in the waning days of the campaign.
Speaking of criminal investigations and draining the swamp, 2 of Governor Chris Christie's top aides were convicted.
So he did go on to ask about Chris Christie, which doesn't really hurt Donald Trump, but you notice Chris Wallace was really weak on that questioning, didn't mention the way that they had to walk back the story, and yet Donald Trump was still spreading it. It didn't acknowledge Fox News's liability in that entire incident. So, like I said, I thought that was pretty weak. I have one more clip on the FBI topic before I move on to the polls that show that Hillary Clinton still is, a 2-to-1 favorite at least before this good news came out. And this next clip is her campaign chair, John Podesta, and this is over on Meet the Press, where Chuck Todd gives John Podesta a chance to really attack James Comey, and he's actually says, he says he made a mistake, but is actually fairly light on attacking James Comey this week. And I think now, knowing the breaking news, I wonder maybe John Podesta already knew this letter was coming out. You can let me know what you think after we watch that clip together over here.
Yesterday, in an interview, said people within the FBI are actively working to try to help the Trump campaign. Do you believe the entire FBI announcement has both been a benefit to the Trump campaign and that there are forces in the FBI that are actively working against your candidacy?
Look, I think what Mr. Comey did, just 9 days ago was a mistake. I think it broke with precedent. I think it was criticized roundly by Democrats and Republicans, including 2 former deputy attorney generals who served with him in the Bush administration. I think it was a mistake. I think what
Is it a mistake that should lead to resignation? Is it a mistake that should lead to resignation?
I've never questioned his motivation. I've just said it was a mistake. It broke with precedent. There's a reason for that policy. It looked like that it was interfering in the election. I think the leaks that have been ongoing, which was what Tim was referring to, is worrisome. But I think the men and women of the FBI are doing a tremendous job out here across the country. But the leakers should shut up.
Let me ask you just a final question.
So hopefully the leakers will shut up, but I don't know. What do you think when you watch that? Do you think that John Podesta already knew that James Comey was sending this letter to Congress, basically clearing Hillary Clinton on the Anthony Weiner emails? I mean, that is really good news that, this whole scandal, even if there is some ongoing investigation, which is what the Fox News people are trying to emphasize, and I'm sure Congress will continue on into, impeachment hearings if Hillary Clinton wins. At least this entire scandal seems to be Weinerless, because I was worried last week that that would really get the attention of the American people, because there'd be some sort of sexual aspect to this whole thing. Otherwise, it's kind of boring. So, and there's not really much of a scandal there, as I've been covering over and over again. And, I'm sick and tired of the damn emails like Bernie, I guess. But I now want to move on to the polls, which already were showing that Hillary Clinton... the race was tightening, but she still was the favorite, and she has a lot of paths to winning, and Donald Trump has a couple narrow paths. I'll start off with Jake Tapper talking about the Hillary Clinton's blue wall in the Rust Belt, the Northeast, the Midwest there. It's basically Wisconsin and Michigan, and I guess Iowa's in there, although she's going to lose Iowa. But I know Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan is basically her blue wall that is crumbling like blue cheese, according to Jake Tapper, which may be a little bit too much of a colorful description. But otherwise, he puts it over to David Kellyanne, who shows the ways that Hillary Clinton has lost Iowa, and that there may be some problems in Michigan. That's why there's so much activity in Michigan, which I'll talk about a little later. But first, let's watch that first polling clip together here.
Heavy campaigning in Michigan has many Democrats taking a second look at their traditional blue wall of electoral votes, which is why President Bill Clinton is campaigning there today, followed by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama tomorrow. So is the blue wall crumbling like blue cheese? CNN's David Chalian is at the magic wall with all the very latest. David?
Jake, it's not entirely clear that it is crumbling, but it is certainly causing heartache for the Democrats. We're looking at this upper Midwest region here: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. This is the heart of Hillary Clinton's electoral map advantage. Take a look at the most recent poll we've seen out of Michigan. 42% to 38%. That's a 4-point race in a state where Barack Obama beat Mitt Romney by 9 points. This is too close for comfort for the Democrats. That's why you see so much campaign activity there. Also, out last night, a brand new Des Moines Register poll in Iowa, 46% to 39%, a 7-point lead for Donald Trump in Iowa. This causes concern not so much about Iowa, which the Clinton folks already thought was out of reach, but what else is happening around Iowa if that is happening in Iowa. Let's go to the electoral map and look at the path to 270. This is the current battleground map. Hillary Clinton at 268, only 2 shy of 270. Where does she go to find it? Well, they feel pretty good about Nevada. They think the early vote there is really good. That gets her over to 274. But this is what's critical. If Donald Trump is able to dig into a place like Michigan, look at that. It drops Hillary Clinton down to 258. Where does she go to find the rest? She must get a big battleground prize like a Florida or a North Carolina. That would do it to get her back over 270. But that is going to require some work. That is why you see Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton heading to Michigan in the final days. They need to keep fortifying that blue wall. Jake?
So it is definitely a little worrisome that it's such a close race. It's within 4 or 5 points in Michigan, as they were saying there, and that's why they're trying to shore up Michigan. If Michigan is in play, then that gives Donald Trump multiple paths, and you'll see Bill Hemmer talk about that in a few minutes when I get back to the different paths to victory for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. But I wanted to move on actually to ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where they had Nate Silver from 538. You'll see in the introduction, George Stephanopoulos kind of pumps up his credentials by saying he was such a great predictor in 2012, though not so much a great predictor of Donald Trump, which he also mentions, but he mitigates that by saying nobody could have gotten Donald Trump. And here's where you see Hillary Clinton still has like a 2-to-1 advantage in, if you're like looking at the odds of who's going to win, and that she just doesn't have the same strength in the Midwest that Barack Obama did, which kind of draws on that same information you saw from David Chalian on CNN in the last clip. Here's Nate Silver sort of explaining the same thing in a different way over here.
2008, 2012, nailed the election for Barack Obama. Like everyone else, you missed Donald Trump in the primary. So where does your forecast have the race right now?
So we show about a 3-point lead nationally for Clinton, and she's about a 2-to-1 favorite. The Electoral College math is actually less solid for Clinton than it was for Obama 4 years ago, where 4 years ago we had Obama ahead in states totaling 320-some electoral votes. Clinton has about 270, so she's one state away from potentially losing the Electoral College. You'd rather be in her shoes than Donald Trump's, but it's not a terribly safe position.
Yeah, you give her about a 65.7 about chance to win. Now, this is the question I want to get to, though, because you say she has, according to your polling analysis, about a 3-point lead. That was about where President Obama was the Sunday before the election 4 years ago. Yet, and I want to put this up on the board right now, at that time you showed that he had an 85.1% chance of winning. So why the contrast right there?
So Clinton's a lot weaker in the Midwest, where 4 years ago President Obama was leading in Ohio by 4 points. Clinton's probably a couple of points behind there. Iowa, maybe the best poll in the country. The Des Moines Register poll showed her down 7 points in Iowa, a state she'll probably lose. So the demographics of Clinton don't actually work as well when you underperform among white non-college voters. That's a good
Even
group for
though
Donald
the
Trump.
national polling is about the same.
Even though, but it's contested in the Electoral College, and her Electoral College polling in the swing states is a little bit weaker than Obama's. So in some sense, it's a deceptively large or small lead for Clinton in some ways, whereas Obama actually had a bigger lead electorally than you'd think. The other thing, too, is that we see lots of polls that show numbers like Clinton 44%, Trump 40%. If you only have 44% of the vote, that means you're vulnerable if most of the undecideds break in a certain way, whereas 4 years ago it was like Obama 49, Romney 46. So in that sense, both candidates still need a good turnout on Election Day and still have their work cut out for them.
This year we've seen a very...
So that was Nate Silver explaining why it's only 2-to-1, even though Hillary Clinton has pretty much the same popular vote advantage as Barack Obama did back in 2012, but he had him up 85%. You just saw that analysis. And what he said there about the college-educated white men, and that I'm going to sort of verify that in a clip from NBC in just a minute, but also I just wanted to show you what the popular vote was in the ABC poll. This is just sort of a screenshot of the latest the last ABC poll of the popular vote before the general election. They have Clinton at 48, Trump at 43, so that, it's still 5 points, but like Nate Silver pointed out, well, actually, in the general election, that's not so bad, but what Nate Silver was talking about is that in a lot of the battleground states, Clinton isn't up at 48 or 49. She's down at like 42 or 43, and Trump is in the high 30s, and that leaves a lot of undecideds. That's what puts more volatility, a lot more unpredictability in the race. But like I said, I wanted to show the NBC poll, and especially the way that Donald Trump has been losing college-educated white men. There's usually a gender gap where the Republican wins white men and the Democrat wins white women. Well, Donald Trump is winning non-college educated white men by huge margins, but Hillary Clinton, for the first time for a Democrat in a long time, is actually winning the white men. This reminds me of how Donald Trump used to say, I love the poorly educated. That was one of his big lines where they showed that the poorly educated support Trump. I wonder why, but here is the NBC pollsters talking about that, and as the internals in the NBC poll that also shows I think it's a 4-point lead. I guess we'll see at the beginning of the clip over here.
Brand new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, which showed Hillary Clinton ahead of Donald Trump 44-40, but there's a lot more behind those numbers. We thought we'd let you hear from the people that do this poll all the time for us. Our poll source, Bill Maher, is the Republican pollster and co-founder of Public Opinion Strategies. And from Team Blue, Fred Yang of Hart Research. All right, Fred, I'll start with you. Clinton is winning, so I'll let Team Blue begin. How durable is this 4-point lead?
I think it's pretty durable, Chuck. The difference between the poll we conducted a couple weeks ago and now is that Trump made up ground with groups he needed to make up ground with. Republicans, white, non-college educated. But to me, the most important number for the Clinton campaign and why I think her lead is durable is if a candidate in politics is having momentum, they should be winning with independents. In our poll, he's losing with independents by 6 points.
That's actually shocking, Bill, because over the last 3 elections, the challenger has carried independents. It's not always meant victory, but the challenger has carried independents. That has to be a flashing yellow sign, but what should give Trump hope?
What gives Trump hope is that we have a large chunk of people who still say they're third party, they won't vote, they're not decided. That's unusually large. It's almost 8, 9, 10%, and they are break even to lean Republican in terms of their House preference. And so this race could tighten. However, in all of our data, we still have Donald Trump losing with white college voters. If you're going to lose Latinos by an historic margin, you cannot win with that
Put up
number.
these numbers here on college-educated versus non-college-educated whites, because this divide may be one of the explanations of this election. Among college-educated white men, Trump is only winning by a point. Among non-college-educated white men, he's winning by almost 40 points. Fred?
You know, the pundits and the analysts talk about
So that is actually kind of extraordinary, the gap in those numbers, especially the non-college, for some reason, non-college educated white men do not like Hillary Clinton. I don't know why that is, but you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I've been reading your live comments along the way, and I do have a couple more clips on the polls before I get on to the next topic. And these next 2 clips are kind of like that first clip about the blue wall of defense crumbling like blue cheese. Well, these are 2 different analyses of different paths to 270 that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump can find on Tuesday's election. And this, I put these 2 together because I think the ABC analysis is really correct, and it sort of matches up with all the other stuff you've seen, that Hillary Clinton is way far ahead. Basically, Donald Trump has to win all the battleground states and then flip one of the blue states. Right now, he's only, in all the battleground states, he's only really ahead, convincingly in Iowa. There's some that are much closer. I'll show, at the end, I'm going to show a CBS clip about Florida and Ohio. That'll be like a brief 15-second clip after these 2, that they're both basically tied. One is actually tied in their poll, and one is within 1 point, so within the margin of error. But first, I want to show these. First, this is the ABC paths to victory, where they honestly tell you that Donald Trump has much fewer paths to victory. And then I'll show how on Fox News they kind of flip it around to make it look like Donald Trump has a lot of different ways when that's not really true. But first, here's the, I think, more realistic look at the map, which I will discuss after we watch that clip together here.
It's been throughout this campaign. The map still favors Hillary Clinton, although the battleground has expanded over the past week. The red states are states that we have rated advantage Trump, blue, advantage Hillary Clinton, gray are the toss-ups. And if you look at it right now, George, Hillary Clinton, even just with the states that already advantage her, is at 275 electoral votes, enough to become president.
So that's her clearest path to victory, but she's got several paths.
Yeah, she has several paths. The first is simply to hang on to those blue states, particularly right here. This is her big blue firewall. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, states that they are looking at in the final week, states that Trump has shown signs of life. If she hangs on to that, she wins narrowly. But the other one, George, is this. This really does it, the state of Florida. If Hillary Clinton can win the state of Florida, and right now they feel confident down there, it is lights out for Donald Trump. Check this out. Even if he manages to win Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, he doesn't get what he needs.
Yeah, that Latino vote down in Florida so far, that early vote, astounding. 200,000 more Hispanics had voted by Friday than voted in the entire last election. But what is Trump's best path right now?
He's got 2 paths that I see. First of all, he can win every single one of the toss-up states, so all of them. He runs the table on the toss-up states. Even there, he comes up short. he wins the state of Nevada, gets to 269. Then he needs to win the single congressional district, the 2nd congressional district up in Maine. That is one path that would get him to 270. The other path he has is, again, to win every single one of the toss-up states and pick off one of those states in the industrial Midwest. For instance, if he takes Pennsylvania, that would get him to where he needs. But again, to do that, he still needs to win every single toss-up state.
John Karl, thanks very much. And we.
So I think that's a realistic look at the different paths, and the key fact to remember there is Donald Trump, to win, has to win all the battleground states and then flip a state, and that's why his path is so much narrower than Hillary Clinton. And if she wins some of these states like Florida, possibly, if she wins Florida, it's pretty much over, because, like I said, he has to win all the battleground states. And over on Fox News Sunday, they had Bill Maher give this analysis that sort of flipped it over, where they assumed he was going to flip some of these states and then had him winning a bunch of the battleground states. And it's really a lot more disingenuous, I think, as I will explain a little more after we watch that clip together over here.
The mezzanine level, and we've supersized the billboard this year for 2016. You see all the states in gray on the map. Those are the states where it's too close to call, the battleground states that we believe as of today that's where the election stands. Go back 4 years ago when Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama. Romney flipped 2 states that year. He made Indiana Republican again, so too in North Carolina. If you assume that Trump, at a minimum, has to hold all the Romney states, this is what it could look like. 16 electoral votes in Georgia. It's 11 in Arizona. It's 15 in North Carolina. And late on Friday, the Trump team tells me they feel very good about where they are in North Carolina. More on that in a moment. He'd have to flip the 6 in Iowa. He'd have to flip 18 in Ohio, 29 in Florida, and still under this scenario, he is 11 electoral votes short. So where does he go? If he were to win Pennsylvania, that would make him president. If he were to win Michigan, that would make him president. If he were to win a combination of, say, New Hampshire and Colorado, that would do it. Or New Hampshire and perhaps Nevada would get him very close at 269 under that particular map. However, if the Clinton team finds success on the East Coast, maybe in a Florida, which could be deadly for the Trump team, or possibly turning North Carolina blue again, you start to see the challenge for Trump as he drops down to 244 electoral votes. That means, under that scenario, he would have to win Pennsylvania and somewhere else. He would have to win a Michigan and somewhere else. 2 states, by the way, that have not gone Republican in 28 years. The point is, on all this, there's a number of different options that you can map out and game for Tuesday night. Trump, it's not impossible. He has a number of ways that he can do it, but it's much more difficult. As it stands today, Chris, it is much easier for Hillary Clinton based on the map that we're watching. Back to you. Bill, thank you.
So the sum up there was kind of like the ABC one, that it's easier for Hillary and harder for Donald Trump to find a path. But I think they showed a lot more paths than Donald Trump really has. And if you kind of compare the two analyses, I think they put some more states in the toss-up that are really leaning heavily Democratic. I mean, they're not locked Democratic, but I think they had Wisconsin in there and Virginia and Nevada, and it's not as disingenuous as the Karl Rove analysis of the Senate. I'm going to compare to the Charlie Cook analysis from NBC a little bit later. But I think the ABC analysis really shows that Hillary Clinton is pretty well locked up on the electoral map. The only thing Donald Trump really had going for him was momentum, and it's possible this breaking FBI story may even have stopped that, although that's hard to say, and it's really late at this point to even have an effect. I mean, especially with the early voting states, a lot of the votes are already banked in. Some were banked in before October 28th when the first James Comey letter came out. But before I leave the topic of the polls, I want to show this brief 17-second clip from CBS's Face the Nation, where they show their final battleground tracker poll on Florida and Ohio, 2 states that are very important. If Hillary Clinton wins Florida and Ohio, that is basically it. There's no way Donald Trump can win if that happens, and they're both basically tied. So that's one of the things that makes the race so exciting, and I'll be watching on Tuesday, and I wonder if it's going to look like this CBS poll we're going to watch together here.
Round of CBS News battleground tracker polls before the election. show a dead heat in Florida, where the candidates are tied at 45% of the vote. In Ohio, Donald Trump has a 1-point edge over Hillary Clinton, 46% to 45%. We begin this morning with the two.
So either of those states could be like recount states. I remember the 2000 election. I don't know how many of my viewers remember that, but that was actually just a couple months after my daughter was born, and I was on paternity leave. And so I got to like watch all that news unfolding with a lot of time at home on my hands, interrupted by, all the stay-at-home dad duties. But I hope that doesn't happen. I really hope that Democrats come back to Hillary Clinton. The reason the race has been tightening, I think, is because Republicans have started coming back to Donald Trump. He's been, there's the FBI letter for one thing, and also Donald Trump is, he's staying on message. He's not going off into these tangents that get him into trouble so much. He was even like using the teleprompter, and he's just not undercutting himself these last several days. So if he had done that the whole election, I don't know, maybe he would have had a much better chance. He still has an actual real chance of winning. It's just not very likely. And it is still coming down to the wire, which is what Jake Tapper started State of the Union with. He always says, what is the State of the Union this week? Well, he said down to the wire. He wasn't the only pundit to use that phrase this Sunday, I guess. But he talked about it being down to the wire. He then actually talked about how they're going to Michigan and even Minnesota. And he then had Senator Al Franken from Minnesota to come on and talk about that. And I'll talk about it with you after we watch that clip together. Over here.
State of our union is down to the wire. Just hours to go now until the American people pick a new president. The stakes are high, so are the tensions, especially perhaps among Democrats who see the race tightening in key states. Hillary Clinton's campaign has been banking on a blue wall. Diehard Democratic states she was banking on for a victory, but Donald Trump says not so fast.
We're going into what they used to call Democrat strongholds, where we're now either tied or leading. We're going to Minnesota. We're going up to Minnesota, which traditionally has not been Republican at all, and we're doing phenomenally. We just saw a poll.
Minnesota, a state that has not gone red in a presidential contest since the Nixon landslide of 1972. And now Trump and his running mate Mike Pence are both going to be there today and tomorrow in these precious last few hours. So does Trump know something that the rest of us don't, or is this wishful, perhaps even desperate, electoral map thinking? Minnesota's Democratic Senator Al Franken joins us now. Senator Franken, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
So let's start with your home state of Minnesota. Donald Trump is headed there today, Pence tomorrow. Republicans say they're within striking distance. Is Hillary Clinton at risk of losing your state, which has not gone Republican since '72?
I don't think so. I'm, Jake, kind of the poster boy for close elections. I had a very close election here in Minnesota in 2008, won by 312 votes. So what I've been focused on the last actually couple months is on turnout, especially last month, doing canvassing all over the country or talking to canvassing offices, urging our people to get on the doors. I think we have a great ground game. I've been, and I'm spending this last week in Minnesota doing that.
Let's turn to...
So that's Al Franken from Minnesota saying that he doesn't think that Donald Trump really has a chance in Minnesota. I don't know exactly why he's going there. I'm a little more worried about Michigan. Basically, it's the lead in Iowa that Donald Trump's lead in Iowa has been growing, which makes it look like he may be able to make some progress in some of the states around Iowa. It's basically the issue of trade policies and those white working class people, the former union members who've lost their job. They took their jobs. It's the took their jobs vote, I guess you could call it. So I wanted to show that clip, but the next clip is also Jake Tapper talking to Al Franken. And, last week I showed Jake Tapper cross-examining Kellyanne Conway, and I'm going to have a Jake Tapper Kellyanne Conway clip sort of maybe the last Kellyanne Conway clip is before the election, so who knows what she'll be doing after the election, especially if Donald Trump loses. I'm sure we'll see her somewhere again. But before I get to the Kellyanne Conway clip, I want to show Jake Tapper arguing, or actually giving sort of a a softball question, teeing up a question for Al Franken about Donald Trump's final 2-minute video that he's trying to broadcast to 20 million people. He bought a 2-minute piece of ad time in a bunch of the battleground states. And one of the things that it shows is these Jew bankers that, it doesn't say Jew bankers, but Jake Tapper, who's Jewish and was cross-examining Kellyanne Conway last week about the USA guy. Well, he gives kind of a softball question to Al Franken, who's also Jewish, to ask him about this, and he says he does think it's anti-Semitic. I guess that's not a surprise, as I will discuss after we watch that clip together. Let me make sure I have the right one here. Yeah, over here.
Ask you about this new 2-minute ad that the Trump campaign is going to be airing. It blasts the Washington and global establishment. It uses images of Obama and Clinton, but some columnists have noted that there are 3 other individuals in the ad: George Soros, Janet Yellen, Lloyd Blankfein, the financier, the Fed chair, and the chair of Goldman Sachs. And people have pointed out all 3 of them happen to be Jewish. What was your take when you saw the ad?
Well, when I saw the ad, I thought that this was something of a German Shepherd whistle, a dog whistle, to sort of a certain group in the United States. I think I'm Jewish, so maybe I'm sensitive to it, but it clearly had sort of Elders of Zion kind of feel to it, international banking crisis plot, or conspiracy rather, and then a number of Jews. So I think that it does speak to a certain part of his alt-right base. The Bannon, who's head of Breitbart, is his chairman. They traffic in that. Trump has retweeted a lot of that sort of thing, and I think that it's an appeal to some of the worst elements in our country as a closing argument. And I think that people who aren't sensitive to that or don't know that history may not see that in that, but that's what I immediately saw.
I want to ask you about...
So I have to agree with Al Franken there, and I've been kind of disturbed by some of the things I've seen in the Trump campaign in that direction. It's one of the things I was thinking when he said that, and I thought this earlier. I showed a clip from John Podesta earlier, who is the campaign chair for Hillary Clinton. He's been on the shows every week. What about the campaign chair for the Donald Trump campaign? We see the campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. That's the next clip I'm going to show. But I wonder why we never see Steve Bannon on any of the shows. Could it be because he has these domestic violence charges that were eventually dropped based on him telling his wife to get out of town so they couldn't prosecute him, allegedly? And he never really had to go on talk to any journalists and answer any questions about that. That would probably be, if he ever did an interview, except maybe on Fox News, that would be one of the things they would ask him about right at the beginning. So maybe that's why we don't see Steve Bannon. But I think there is this alt-right, white supremacist, nationalist, anti-Semitic, anti-immigrant. It's kind of disturbing, and it's especially disturbing because it's not going to go away when Donald Trump loses on November 8th, assuming he does lose. And I don't even want to think about what's going to happen with it if he doesn't lose. Well, either way, it's really bad because it just really emphasized that element really exists in our society, and not hopefully a way that can win an election, but it's definitely a significant way that can affect our elections. So I'm kind of sad about that. There was also this altercation yesterday at a Trump rally. This is the Kellyanne Conway clip I promised, I actually was watching this live, and it turned out it was a Republican who has canvassed for and donated to Hillary Clinton. He wanted to put up a sign that said Republicans against Trump. Since this clip came out, he spoke to the media and said he was actually physically assaulted by a bunch of Trump supporters. But what Jake Tapper is trying to get Kellyanne Conway to admit is that it's wrong that people in the Trump campaign have been calling it an assassination attempt, because somebody like yelled gun, but there was no gun, and the Secret Service actually released the guy afterwards. He was kind of a victim because he was beaten apparently. But this is like maybe it's the last Kellyanne Conway confrontation with Jake Tapper we're going to see, at least until she gets some other job after Donald Trump loses. Hopefully loses, I guess. But here's Jake Tapper trying to get her to answer the question. By the end, you'll see Jake Tapper's arguing with her about something totally different, involving like what the media says, I think. So she does her job, I guess. But she doesn't ever really admit that they shouldn't be calling what happened yesterday an assassination attempt, as I will discuss with you after we watch that final Jake Tapper clip for the evening in his confrontation with Kellyanne Conway here.
But he faced a frightening moment in Reno, Nevada last night as Secret Service rushed Trump off the stage and security forces stormed the audience after panic in the crowd. Now, what we've learned is what apparently happened is a protester tried to raise a Republicans Against Trump sign. That protester was confronted by people in the crowd, tackled, and someone in the crowd apparently incorrectly yelled that the protester had a gun. The U.S. Secret Service says that no weapon was found. They report that no one was hurt. Mr. Trump returned to the stage not long after and resumed his campaign pitch. Joining me now from New York is Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jake. Hi.
So first of all, we're glad everyone's okay. I have to ask, your social media director, Dan Scavino, and a member of Mr. Trump's family, they're retweeting misinformation that this was an assassination attempt. It was not an assassination attempt. Thankfully, should they be spreading this misinformation?
Well, I'm glad you're happy that everybody's okay. That's really the main focus here. It's scary. I mean, all the coverage is usually about our protesters wreaking havoc and making people feel afraid, and this certainly goes both ways. I'm with Mr. Trump and the Secret Service routinely. They do an amazing job. They are absolutely the unsung heroes, I'm sure, for Mrs. Clinton as well and the Secret Service. We really respect those men and women enormously, and I'm glad nobody was hurt, but it does remind you that in these closing days, especially as the polls tighten, many of us are getting more death threats, getting more angry messages on social media and elsewhere, and it's a pretty fraught environment there. I think that's the real focus here. I also just want to point out, because some people are spreading misinformation about the protester, he had canvassed for Hillary Clinton and he had donated to her campaign. So this is a Democratic plant or operative trying to disrupt our rally, and I think that people saw a nimble, resilient Donald Trump, who would be nimble and resilient as president as well, take back to the stage Dan Scavino telling people, we're not going to be stopped. Nobody can interrupt this movement. But, if you're Don Jr. and you're on a live TV set while you're watching this unfold, it's pretty rattling to think of what may have happened to your father. So I'll excuse him that.
Except it wasn't an assassination attempt. It was apparently a local voter, a Republican, who says he is supporting Hillary Clinton. He has given money to Hillary Clinton. He has canvassed for Hillary Clinton, but he says he's a Republican. But most importantly, he was not trying to assassinate anyone. Here's what I'm talking about. Let's put it up. Donald Trump Jr. and Dan Scavino retweeted this, quote, Hillary ran away from rain today. Trump is back on stage minutes after assassination attempt. Again, we're very happy that this was not an assassination attempt, but why is your campaign spreading that it was?
Well, how do you, first of all, that's really remarkable, I have to say, that that's what the storyline is here. I thank you for reminding everybody that the rain chased her away. There weren't a lot of people there at her rally to begin with, and the rain just let them running for cover. I think she's got to sort of travel nonstop with Beyonce, Jay-Z, and the likes of that just to prop her up and get a decent crowd. People, by the way, are there to see Beyonce, not to see her. Jake, I want to say, are CNN going to retract all the storylines, all the headlines, all the breathless predictions of the last 2 weeks that it turned out not to be true? The race is over. The path is closed. It's going to be a blowout. You guys retract that, and I'll give a call to Dan Scavino about the retweet.
I never reported anything along those lines. I've always been saying that this was going to be a tight election, and even when Hillary... Who hasn't?
CNN certainly has. CNN certainly has. You know, I love CNN, but you got to be honest here. The lower third, what's always on the chyrons, the panelists, the so-called experts, constantly saying she can't lose, the race is over, the path is narrowed. And you know what? I actually thank you guys in part for that, because
I've never heard anybody say the race
CNN?
was over. We've been saying all along that Donald Trump has a path to the presidency, and you can say wow all you want. I've never said that the race was over. We can replay as many tapes as you want. Let's move on. I want to play something that was said on Sunday at that same rally by the chairman of the Nevada.
I guess I'm going to miss Kellyanne Conway. I mean, I guess she'll be back somewhere. She's done such a good job. I mean, did you see, not only were they like arguing about something totally different than tweeting about an assassination attempt that never happened there, but by the end, she had totally changed the subject. But along the way, she had like so many attacks on Hillary Clinton and a whole bunch of attacks on the media, all like squeezed in there, like rapid fire, like a machine gun. I don't know. She's like a machine gun of misinformation. I don't know what you can call her, but she never really admitted that they shouldn't be calling it an assassination attempt. She said all sorts of things that sort of tried to mitigate it. You know, he watched his father be hustled off the stage by the Secret Service on live TV. I'm going to forgive him. And I don't know. I'm going to miss Kellyanne Conway, but I'm not going to really miss her because I know she's going to be back. She'll be doing something. She's done such a good job. This is not going to be the end of Kellyanne Conway. We can only hope it's the end of Donald Trump, but probably not the end of Donald Trump either. But before I end the topic of final arguments, I want to show a couple of Bill Maher's final arguments of things he's been arguing multiple times on his show for the election. One final argument to young millennials not to do the false equivalency, he called it last week, I guess, of saying that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are the same, and to not vote or to vote for a third party. So his like final argument to the young millennials I'm going to play first, and then his like final attack on the Trump supporters, this one on the Christian evangelicals who finally in the Trump campaign showed what true hypocrites they are, except for the Mormons. I'm not going to show the part where he says except for the Mormons, but before I get to that second Bill Maher clip, here's the first one where he's making his final argument to young millennials, I guess, about how they need to vote for Hillary Clinton and not be like stupid and cynical or faux cynical, I guess is what he said last week. Here's what he said this week in this clip.
Because let me make a plea. I have lapdog. Limited time to the young people.
Yes, please.
Because you know, like
really,
like they say in the action movies, the shit just got real.
Yeah.
I know you're young and idealistic, so I've heard these young people on the news, and they say things like, well, Donald Trump, I don't like him, but Hillary, I can't vote for a liar. I mean, first of all, it's just apples and oranges, an orange. But kids, I've been doing this for 23 years on TV. I've seen a lot. I know politics. This is different. I promise you this will not make your life better. And also, once fascists get power, they don't give it up. You've got President Trump for life. I know liberals made a big mistake because we attacked your boy Bush like he was the end of the world, and he wasn't. And Mitt Romney, we attacked that way. I gave Obama $1 million because I'm so afraid of Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney wouldn't have changed my life that much, or yours.
No, absolutely correct.
Or John McCain. They were honorable men who we disagreed with, and we should have kept it that way. So we cried wolf, and that was wrong. But this is real.
Yep.
This is going to be way different.
And I don't understand. I don't understand millennials on any level.
That was well said.
It is.
Now, actually, one thing I disagree with Bill Maher there, you know, he said that George W. Bush was like a Nazi or fascist. Some people did say that, and but I've been doing YouTube videos since 2006, and I actually was very clear not to call George W. Bush a Nazi or a fascist because I wanted to save that up. I actually waited for Donald Trump to say that he was sort of a proto-fascist, or I finally broke Godwin's law by comparing Donald Trump with my like New Year's video of 2016 back at the beginning of the year, where I showed Donald Trump and said that it was like he was the most dangerous clip of 2016, or showing how Donald Trump's supporters are what Hannah Arendt called the banality of evil, that they're just like the common people. They're not like monsters. That's the thing about Donald Trump supporters. A lot of them, they're just like ordinary people who have like feelings of disillusionment with a system that has left them behind, or not really fought for their success. And there are a lot of people who feel that way and legitimately. And anyway, I didn't want to go into all that, but one group of Trump supporters who I think Bill Maher rightly criticized in this next clip are he called them the Bible thumpers, but they're, the evangelicals. A lot of evangelicals went for Trump, even though he is not a very godly man, I don't believe, and does not really show the philosophy of Christ or of Jesus and Christianity, if you actually have read the Christian Bible. But here's Bill Maher talking about that, and I'll talk about it a little more after we watch together here.
This election behind, we must all thank Donald Trump for the one good thing he did. He exposed evangelicals, who are big Trump supporters, as the shameless hypocrites they've always been. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but Republicans didn't get to play the Jesus card this time around, because it's hard to bring up the 10 Commandments when your candidate spent his life breaking all of them. Trump's commandments are like the regular commandments with LOL at the end. Adultery? Check. Cursing?
Listen, you motherfuckers.
Check. Stealing? Check. Bearing false witness?
Wrong.
Check. False idols? Oh, yeah. He is the world's least godly man. Jesus saw the good in whores and lepers, but if he met Donald Trump, he'd go, sorry, man, that's a pre-existing condition.
So I think Bill Maher's making a valid point there, and that's his final attack on the Trump supporters before the election, and that's my final clip in my topic of final arguments and the final arguments of the candidates and the final confrontation between Kellyanne Conway and Jake Tapper, her final appearance on the Sunday shows, although somehow I think she'll be back in some form somewhere in politics. But even if Donald Trump doesn't win, which it seems like he's not going to win, although it's certainly not a certainty at this point. And before I move on to the next topic, which is going to be the topic of the Senate, I wanted to thank all of my live viewers. I think I'm almost up to 250 live viewers, and I've been reading your live comments along the way. One I saw a little bit earlier from, I think it's Carrie91 is how you pronounce this. Let me see if I can import this. Asking about this prop YesOn62 sign. YesOn60, the Proposition 62 is the proposition here in California on the ballot on Tuesday to get rid of the death penalty. Actually, the last video I made on Halloween is called my anti-death penalty Halloween display. I didn't have a chance to put a link down in the video description before the show, but if you're watching as a recorded show, I'll put a link down there to that video, so you can just check it out down there, or just go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/LiberalViewer. It's the last video I made before this one. You can see a little bit about Prop 62 there, but Prop 62 would end the death penalty. There's also Proposition 66, which would speed up the death penalty and actually start California executing people and increase the risk that innocent people are executed. So there's actually two death penalty propositions, and it's really important to vote yes on 62 and no on 66 if you happen to be in California and you haven't voted yet. That's how I'll be voting on Tuesday, definitely. So I appreciate that question, and I appreciate all the comments I get from the live viewers along the way, and also from the viewers of the recorded show. So I now want to move on to two clips on another topic on the 2016 election. The U.S. Senate is up for grabs. It's really up in the air whether they're going to be Democrats or Republicans in charge. Right now Republicans control both the Senate and the House, And it would be a huge victory for Democrats if Hillary Clinton won and they controlled the Senate. All they need is 50 senators, because if it's 50-50, then the vice president breaks the tie, and so it would be Vice President Tim Kaine. And especially for the Supreme Court nominees, they may even just get rid of the filibuster if the Republicans tried that, and they could just like force through any Supreme Court nominee with a majority vote plus Tim Kaine as vice president. So just on that issue alone, it would be a huge victory for the Democrats to get the presidency and the Senate. I think the way that they discuss it over on NBC's Meet the Press with Charlie Cook, where he basically says the Democrats have 50 senators and may have more. I think that's the reasonable way to look at it. And then I'm going to compare it to what Karl Rove said on Fox News Sunday, which I don't even understand exactly how he came up with the numbers he did. But first, here's what the odds really look like from NBC's Meet the Press this morning here.
Editor of the Cook Political Report, and we're picking Senate races here. We're taking a look at the 9 closest Senate races in the country that's going to decide control of the Senate knife's edge. As you can see, allocating everything so far, we have it at 46-45. So here we go, the last 9, Charlie Cook. Let's start with high confidence to low confidence for you. We'll start with Illinois.
Mark Kirk has just had the toughest job of any Republican incumbent. He's just not going to make it back.
All right, this one, a battle of a current and former senators, Russ Feingold's Ron Johnson.
Ron Johnson made a comeback, but not enough for Feingold wins.
Democrat flip comes back here. We got Florida, Marco Rubio.
It's not going to be a landslide, but it's going, Rubio wins.
Even if Clinton carries Florida?
I think even so. I think Rubio still wins.
All right, we got our fun here. All right, let's move to Pennsylvania. Pat Toomey ran a big Obama spot.
Toomey started coming back towards the end, but not enough. Katie McGinty wins.
Not enough. Presidential coattails. All right, Evan Bayh's come back.
I really thought Bayh was going to be able to hang on, but I think it's too much. It's going Republican.
Going Republican. Meet Senator Todd Young. Nevada, the Harry Reid seat.
That's where I think the Democratic turnout operation is going to be just too much, and Democrats will hold on to Nevada.
This will be the first Hispanic woman U.S. Senator, if that does happen. All right, the final 3 here. Look at where we are, 49-48. What do we got?
I think I would push Ayotte coming Democratic.
Well, that puts the 50. That's 50, so if Clinton wins, that's control. What about these last 2? Burr, Blunt. You're not ready to pick them, are you?
No, I'm not.
Which one's more likely to be a recount?
North Carolina.
I think we are in for an interesting and long night. All right, Charlie Cook, there it is. Definitely 4. If it's a big Democratic night, it goes more?
Yeah.
All right, there it is. Coming up, no matter who wins, our long national.
So that's Charlie Cook on NBC saying that the Democrats have 50 and maybe North Carolina and Missouri. But over on Fox News Sunday, Karl Rove somehow spins these numbers into saying kind of the opposite, that the Republicans have 49, and then they're looking for one of 3, including New Hampshire and including, you'll see Nevada and Missouri here. Well, I'll discuss it after we watch sort of the Republican Fantasyland version of that same analysis from Karl Rove, who is infamous for his inability to accept that Mitt Romney had lost in 2012. Well, I think he is not really looking at the real numbers or not really understanding them in his analysis over here.
On election night, also control of the Senate. And the fact is that the Democrats need a net pickup of 5 seats or 4 seats plus Vice President Tim Kaine to break any ties, to take control. We have our resident Senate watcher, Karl Rove. What's it look like for you, and what are the key states you're going to be looking at?
Well, look, I think it's going to come down. The Republicans, I think, are going to bank 5 seats that they need, and it's going to come down to winning 2 out of the remaining seats. The 3 best shots are going to be.
You mean the Democrats are going to bank?
No, the Republicans are going to bank 5 seats.
Okay.
Arizona, Ohio, Florida, Missouri, and Indiana, and that'll get them to 49. And the question is, how do they get to 51? And the 3 best shots they've got, and they got to take 2 out of 3, are first North Carolina, Richard Burr versus Deborah Ross. Burr leads by 1.5 in Real Clear Politics. Interesting to watch early vote. Democrats, as of Friday evening, 12,000 fewer Democrat early votes than in 2012. Republicans, 151,000 more. This is in a state Romney won by 94,000.
All right, and real quickly, Burr is the incumbent. That's a Republican seat, so the key is, can he hold on?
Can he hold on to all three of these are holding on? Excuse me, two of them are holding on. The second one is New Hampshire, Kelly Ayotte versus Maggie Hassan. Ayotte, the incumbent Republican, Hassan, the Democratic governor. Ayotte is up 2.4 points. She's led in 7 of the last 10 polls in October. This will be the most expensive per capita Senate race in the history of America. $120 million will be spent.
And again, that's a Republican seat that
Republican
they're trying to hold on
they've
to.
got to hold.
And then there's one seat that's a Democrat seat. Harry Reid, the majority leader, is retiring, and Nevada's that.
Yeah, Republican Congressman Joe Heck versus former Attorney General Mastow. Heck leads by 1.4 in the Real Clear Politics average. He's led in 7 of the 13 polls since October 1. The GOP has cut the Democratic lead in early voting by only 2,000, but this could be just like 2012. Barack Obama took the state in the presidential race, and Republican Senator Dean Heller was elected.
So you think Republicans definitely get to 49. The question is, can they get to 51?
Right.
Or 50 with President or Vice President Mike Pence.
Always good to have an insurance policy, though. And look, there are a couple of other races out.
So, like I said, I think Charlie Cook is more reasonable than Karl Rove on that. I mean, he basically banked Missouri, which is much more, and New Hampshire, I think, is also one of the states that Charlie Cook called for the Democrats that Karl Rove has as one of his 3 toss-ups. So it's, I don't know, but it could be that things go in the way that make it more likely for Karl Rove's outcome. I mean, there's still, it could end up being 50-50, and Charlie Cook, isn't necessarily going to be 100% correct. Some of those are within the margin of error, so he's calling toss-up states based on his experience, and Karl Rove, of course, is calling them based on his experience, which is as a, liar for the Bush administration. So that's why his is more dishonest, I guess. But that's the 2 clips I wanted to show you on the topic of the U.S. Senate being up for grabs on Tuesday. And there's one more clip I want to show you. This is Bill Maher's interview with Barack Obama. Down in the video description, I put a link to the real-time channel on YouTube. This week, I think they actually chose just about every clip that I chose to put for free on the YouTube channel. I think one of my clips is slightly longer than what they chose. One of my clips is a little bit shorter. And then they have the whole new rule that I only showed a part of. And then they have even more of the Barack Obama interview than was broadcast. I just wanted to show this 1 4-minute, 20-something second clip of where they talked about socialism, whether healthcare should be socialized, whether the media should be socialized, whether there's certain industries that shouldn't have a profit motive. And I want to talk about what they specifically talked about, but I have to do my standard nitpicky, or some people call it nitpicky, or pedantic, or didactic, or whatever you want to call it, definition of socialism, which they're not really sticking to. Socialism is government or collective ownership or control of the means of production. That means if the government owns the factory and then pays the workers, that's a socialist factory. If the government owns the trains, like Amtrak, that's a socialist train system. If the government gives subsidies to people to get health care, like Obamacare, that's not socialism. If the government takes tax money from rich people and gives subsidies to poor people, redistribution of wealth, that's not socialism. If the government gives an insurance or old age pensions, Social Security, where they give payments to old people, it's not government ownership of the means of production. Sorry, not socialism. Those might be what they call democratic socialism, or in Europe they call social democratic parties want these kind of social safety nets, but it's not really the economic system of socialism where the government or the collective has to own or control the means of production. So having given that pedantic, didactic introduction to this clip where I don't think Bill Maher is really using the word socialism correctly. He never really uses it correctly. I will show you the clip where Bill Maher asks about it, and then instead of discussing the meaning of socialism, after I show the clip, I'll give a brief commentary on what they actually say in the clip as we watch the last clip of one of what may be one of the last Liberal Viewer Sunday Live clip roundups. Certainly the last one before the Tuesday election we've been covering for so long. So here it is, and we'll talk about it after we watch it together here.
From the election. And you're a history buff. I think when we look back, if Mr. Trump is defeated, I'm hopeful that the takeaway will be that socialism was not such a dirty word anymore because of our friend Bernie Sanders. And I'm just wondering, as someone who was accused of being a socialist before, what you think about the idea that in America, yes, we're capitalists, but some things just should not be for the profit motive. Healthcare, prisons, the military, elections, and I would add news gathering. People say get the money out of politics. I think you got to get out of the news business first, or we're never going to learn anything.
Well, a couple things I'd say. First of all, in some ways, the label socialism doesn't make that much sense in a context where there's no economy that doesn't have some socialist elements, meaning that there's some common goods that we all agree everybody should have. That's what Social Security is. That's what Medicare is to some extent. That's what public schools are. We all chip in to make sure that everybody, no matter the circumstances of your birth, have these baseline goods. And as you know, I've felt pretty strongly that healthcare should be one of those goods. I've also said in the past that if I were designing a system from scratch, I would have probably looked at a single-payer system. But we do have legacy systems, and that's the only thing that sometimes when I've had conversations with Bernie, I've said to him, yeah, we don't start from scratch. You've got a $1 trillion healthcare industry, for example, and you got a lot of people who are working for it and a lot of special interests involved. And so my goal in the Affordable Care Act was if I can get millions of more people insurance, then that's my first goal. And then the question is, how do we make sure everybody ultimately gets it? Because there's still gaps in coverage. I think the same is true, when it comes to some other issues. To me, I think there is a pretty bright line around prisons. I agree with you that the criminal justice system should not be infected by the profit motive. This is the awesome power of the state, saying we can take somebody's freedom away. We can lock them up because they've breached some part of the social contract. The notion that you might incentivize people to lock more people in or keep them there longer, or not provide the kind of rehabilitation services so that they can get out of there. I think that's a problem. And so I'm very proud of some of the work that we've been trying to do along these lines. We got more work to do. When it comes to the media, that's a tougher call because, look, state-run media, that's what they got in
well, not state-run, but just like it used to be. It was a lost leader for the networks. They didn't have to make a profit at CBS.
Partly because they had a monopoly, though, to some degree. Right. So they were fat and happy. In this kind of environment, it's hard to figure out how you would do that. But I think the question I'd have when it comes to the media is how do we create a space where truth gets eyeballs and is entertaining, and we can build a common conversation. What is true, when I leave here, one of the things I'm most concerned about is the balkanization of the media, where you've got 800 stations, you've got all these websites. People have difficulty now just sorting out what's true and what's not. And if you don't have some common baseline of facts, we can have a disagreement about how to deal with climate change, but if we have a big chunk of the country that just discounts what 99% of scientists say completely, it's very hard to figure out how we move the democracy forward.
I don't know. Like I guess this isn't going to be my last Liberal Viewer Sunday live clip roundup, but if it were, that might be an interesting sentiment to end on, because that's really been one of the driving forces of my political analysis and media criticism over the last 10 years plus that I've been doing this job or part-time job, making these videos where I try to show that the facts matter, that whatever news source you're analyzing, that you can find what's true, what's not true, what's speculation, what is not journalistic, what's bias, and you know, the facts should matter. And I don't know, maybe that's one reason why it's not useful to be making videos anymore after this election. I don't know, especially if Hillary Clinton wins, or certainly if Donald Trump wins, it would prove the facts don't really matter that much anymore. But I don't know, maybe fact-checking and videos talking about Fox News bias or media bias, I mean, maybe that's passé, I don't know. But I will be making another video next Sunday, at least one more Liberal Viewer Sunday live clip roundup, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the future of my YouTube channel at that point. And based on the feedback and the support I get from all of you, I will decide whether I keep going in this making videos and what form I keep making them. If you like what I'm doing here, you can give me a thumbs up. You can give me direct fan funding on my channel by clicking on this little eye over in the corner here. You can become one of my patrons on Patreon if you want me to keep making videos after the 2016 elections. I guess if you join now, that would kind of be, and became one of my patrons at this point, it would show that you wanted me to keep going. So I'll take that into consideration. I may do a live stream around the election on Tuesday. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I have some free time on Tuesday and Wednesday when I might be able to do something like that. And I will be back at least next Sunday. And until then, and until I do a live stream around the election, or I do my Sunday live clip roundup next Sunday, which may or may not be the last one of this last 185 weeks I've been doing this. I appreciate all of you who've joined me and who've been giving me your comments and your thumbs up and even your criticisms and your support, of course. And until I'm back next week to do another of my live Sunday clip roundups, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.